Way.
So today Alex is going to tell us about this book, Jas and Elizabeth, which he wrote in conjunction with interviews with a neighborhood friend.
Yes.
That's correct? You want to tell us?
Yes. Not a neighborhood friend. Let's see. She was originally an L.A. journalist. Los Angeles journalist. She came here to the city. Happened to be friends with Brittany, who is the woman who sponsored the creation of the book. And she said, "I have this woman that will interview you," and she thought that the two of us would be wonderful, very compatible. So we spent about 10 days. Maybe about an hour or an hour and a half a day. In fact, sitting around here, because at the time I was doing my work at the Aquatic Park Senior Center. And so out of this developed this wonderful manuscript that I decided, well, this is definitely worthy of a book. And so I wanted to especially indicate and hear my understanding of what being a senior citizen was, and how I had found some things from doing a group for 7 years, a little bit about things that were very helpful to other seniors, and I wanted to spread that word. So that's what this is about. There's examples of seniors that would have wonderful turnabouts in the course of being in our group together, our social group, and we wanted to get people, especially during, well, actually this is pre-COVID, excuse me, it's pre-COVID, but already there was a sense of some of the seniors having a sense of isolation. They had lost spouses or loved ones, and now they were facing the world alone. So they would come to the center to learn how to be more social and have new friends. So that's the nucleus of the book. I recommend it highly because I think it's very, very helpful to seniors. And you may know a senior that could use something like this, so it's a wonderful gift and it's affordable. So that's my plug for the book. The main thing I wanted to say about it is that in some cases it can make all the difference in the world to have a guideline for what to do. For example, there's a segment there where I talk about 10 important things that seniors should know about with regard to health and how to live your life in a more protective, sane way. So that's a bit of helpful information. And then, as I say, stories about various seniors. One very endearing one, Helen. Helen was this wonderful woman who was always in a very positive manner whenever I would see her, a positive demeanor. She was in a senior center and assisted living because she had some heart issues. And so one day I was doing an art class. I just thought it would be fun to work with the seniors. I said, well, here's a crab. I had drawn a crab. And I went around to show each of them. All of them recognized the crab, and they were setting about to do a crab of their own. And I said to Helen in particular, Helen, the interesting thing about a crab is that they have these claws, and when they grab you, they'll hold on to you. And she said, "Oh, good." That was Helen. She realized the need for connection, and so that was just a way of illustrating connection. But so many seniors you'd be surprised, so many people are living alone in a single room occupancy without so much as a friend to call them, to check in on them. That's why the program of Food on Wheels is such a project of open hand that brings food to people. So sometimes that's the only meal they're getting in a day or more. So it's a hot meal to get that nutrition. But
and the interaction.
And the interaction with someone for 10 minutes to sit down and talk to me. Because I'm a person and I'm an older person and I'm not out and about, but I need to have some opportunity to talk with someone. The senior center is a wonderful place for that, and of course during COVID that changed dramatically. The good news is that this center here is opening up in June.
It is?
Yeah, it's opening in June. So in a small way with limited attendance, trial and error to see what's going to work. They probably won't feed a couple hundred people a day that used to have lunch there, but they'll certainly have some of their programs and exercise features, meditation, things like that. So that's a good thing that people can get out and about. But I have more concern about the seniors because now I'm one all of a sudden, and it was hard for me to accept that, and hard for my wife to accept that. But now we are sort of mentors because we lead a Zoom class during COVID to substitute for having actual in the flesh contact. So it's important that we give people that opportunity to see, to learn things that could be helpful to them, and introduce them to other ways of thinking. To have you, Elizabeth, as a younger woman, relating to what it's like for some of the older women, and for them to see what your life is about, the difficulties that you face, the joys, and the good things that are happening to you. So that intergenerational exchange is really a great value. And please.
Regarding that intergenerational exchange, do you have ideas or suggestions as to how that could be facilitated or be easier?
Yes, I do.
Besides this kind of conversation group, yeah.
Right. The next village where we are working together now, and you are so kind to be a volunteer and to help out.
My pleasure.
Join other Zoom groups.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's your pleasure to interact with someone who needs you. So that you're filling a void and you're really bringing joy to yourself to be useful in a way that maybe you hadn't thought about. So connections could happen more between the younger and the older woman. It's in terms of, say, let's go out for coffee, or you can't walk so well, I'm going to come over to your apartment and bring you some coffee. And maybe we can visit today, or maybe we do some sketching, which I know you like to paint. Or maybe we can knit together really and crochet, because that's a hobby that you haven't been able to do for a while. And sometimes your arthritis gets in the way, and you can no longer knit. Well, we can do some hand exercises together, and maybe we'll get some flexibility back in our fingers so that we can enjoy our knitting. Or maybe we can go over recipes and see what recipes you have from your family, your Polish roots or your Scandinavian roots, and I can share with you my German, Irish roots, and we can really make a hell of a meal and invite Mary, Jane, and Judy from our group. So this is a real natural way. There's nothing artificial about it. It's just a wonderful idea. You might do this with your girlfriends of your own age. Well, let's extend to these ladies who would love. There's such a fountain of information, the lives they have led, living through World War II, through the Korean War, through depression, through real hardship, through scarlet fever, through the Spanish flu of 1918. Incredible things that they've endured.
And in a world that didn't have the technology that we're used to now.
Exactly. They couldn't go to Google and find out what do I do about my arthritis. Maybe they couldn't get to a doctor.
Or my terrible cooking.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who's cooking this food? Stop it.
I'll do dishes.
Yeah. So I think this is a great example, and I'm sure you can think of other things too. Supposing, for example, that you wanted to show a woman about journal writing and what you do, and how a phrase that you hear is so precious that you want to write it down so you can relive that moment anytime you look at that book. So these are the kinds of things that can germinate in your mind. Say, oh, I know how I can help. And the rewards are greater than the effort you make. That's why we continue to do the group.
I guess my question was more not so much as specific activities to do together, although I love hearing about those ideas.
Okay.
But for women who are not involved in, for example, the Next Village conversation group or other places, or younger women who aren't, how to just meet people or have like that kind of initial connection.
Oh, I see. How do you break the ice, so to speak? Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think. There's an Italian organization that I also belong to called Italian Community Service, and they are doing this kind of thing, but exclusively with the Italians of the North Beach, Telegraph Hill, Marina area. And what they do is they provide food in a wonderful box of produce and canned goods and sweets every other week. And they were doing this through COVID, and now they're continuing to do it. So I would say you would simply call someone in any of these organizations and say, look, I would like to help a woman. I don't have any preference. I would like someone who enjoys conversation, or someone who enjoys this task, or needs help getting her groceries together. And I'd be glad to go shopping with her, or perhaps again sharing a pizza, or getting to know one another that way. And they would provide probably a name, several names you can consider.
Right. Yeah.
Because obviously you're not going to know them. They're going to have this information from people who they know need help. So there's plenty of places to offer help if you have the time and you're willing to try it. It may not be your cup of tea, but on the other hand, you may find someone that becomes a lifelong friend.
Right.
So that's something.
Thank you. Some questions, or is there some other things you wanted to mention first?
No. I think the book speaks for itself.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but if you have some
yes. So we know you have a master's in education and in psychology.
Right.
And we're interested in hearing about the differences in your approach and your experience in teaching versus counseling.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, that's going to take me back a ways to my early career as a teacher. When I was teaching, I was also studying for those masters, and my thinking was I knew eventually I wanted to move into counseling because I really liked the counseling of juveniles. But I could see that I could be more helpful if I had some adults to work with, who I could, maybe explain more complex thinking. Instead of just what are you going to do to graduate and what are you going to do to pull your grades up. More life-affirming kinds of questions. So the masters put me in a situation where I had to get so many credit hours in the field. So I was put into these various institutions and asked to help counsel. Finding my way into the organization Women for the Federal Pen. I think I mentioned that before, and that was my baptism by fire because these women really drilled me. I was the bad husband, I was the terrible boyfriend, I was the cheating father, anyone who created
a symbol
of all these kinds of horrible things that happen in their lives, and they needed to have an opportunity to vent. So at the time, I was the only male in this facility, with something like 40 women coming out of Federal Pen living in this halfway house. And the woman who ran the whole thing was a nun, a Catholic nun. So I had stuff from the Catholic nun, and I had stuff from all the women. And I provided goodies like food stamps, visitation rights to your kids, visitation rights to your husband, and so forth. So they were manipulating me every minute. And so I had to learn how to cope with that. And I remember the nun saying one day, if your counseling goes so far as to get you involved with these women in any way appropriate, you're fired. Just understand that.
Wow. So how did your...
so that was my admonition from the very beginning.
Your manner towards these women differ towards your students?
Good question, yes. This is where I was finding out about Eric Berne, transactional analysis, and the works of Paul Rogers and Michael Erickson, and a few other, Gerald Jankowski. These were all psychiatrists who worked in different populations. So I realized that I needed to be more nurturing than I had ever been before. And
with the women.
Yes. Nurturing, but not to be misled in my nurturings. I was not being flirtatious. I was caring about their welfare and wanting them to succeed in this remedial phase so that they can go back to their children, go back to their relationships or their jobs that they love, and get them away from that going back to the pen. I also had the right to extend their stay in prison with the consult, with the staff.
Yes.
I mean, I was in a pivotal place, and I was given a tremendous opportunity for about 2 years. Then I met my present wife, my my only wife, Leslie, and my bride, and she said, "What the hell are you doing in this facility? Get your ass out of here." In words similar to those, you know, a little more gentle. And so it led me to think that, you know, there are other populations. Shortly after all this, I discovered my own cancer, which led me into a year of treatment and then remedial a phase of, not remedial, but restoring and getting myself well, and then marriage to Leslie, and then wanting to have something new in my life. And I found that it was important to work with people who had also my experience. It was fresh in my mind. I want to work with cancer people. And the hospital, St. Francis, said, "We need you. We want you to do a group, men and women, people who are sick with cancer and their loved ones, and counsel them." So work with that medical mode, so to speak. And if you need to consult with any of our staff, that's perfectly fine. And we have a nurse that's going to come into the picture and give medical information that you don't know. Great, let's do it. 7 years passed with maybe over 300 people. I think there's a reference in the book.
Yeah.
And it was a great, great period because it taught me another way of using my skills. And nurturance was now twice as important. Because these were people who not only had their lives changed dramatically in a prison situation, incarceration, these were people whose lives were threatened very, very boldly. Hey, you've got 6 months, you may have a year, get your stuff together.
And something that was out of their control.
Yes.
They had participated in consciously.
Right, exactly. So my approach then was to look at people like Louise Hayes, Cheryl Trampowski, who worked in Tiburon. These were people who were local and were helping to assess what it was like to be sick and what you could do. A woman approached me and said, "You know, I'm losing my hair," so we got her squared away with a beauty shop that only catered to wigs for women with cancer. Another woman had breast cancer. Okay, we're going to go to this plastic surgeon who does nothing but restoration after mastectomy. We would then find appropriate places for the needs of these people. So I became medically very aware. I don't have that now because technology and medication has changed so much, but I knew then, and I had a lot of those drugs within me. I had the surgery, I had radiation. I knew what a lot of that was like, so I could really empathize with the patient or with a counselor.
Was that important to them, do you think?
Yes, because the doctor will tell you one thing, "Oh, it's no big thing, you'll be fine in a week." Not true. You're not going to be fine in a week. You're going to be really shitty for a long time. And you're going to be crying uncontrollably. You're going to be having days when you want to be out of bed. You will have a lethargy that you cannot understand. You may have a bad reaction to one of these strong poisonous chemicals.
So your ability to relate to that.
Yes.
It's easier probably for you to do the extra nurturing.
Exactly.
You can so easily put yourself in there.
Right. And I would, since they were in the hospital, and that was the hospital where I had my treatment, I knew doctors, I knew nurses, and I knew staff that would be helpful. So then I would maybe take someone and go with that person the next day to discuss with their doctor. So I was an advocate. So I was really helpful in more than just the way of talking.
Group session.
Yeah. In other words, I brought them a solution or an opportunity to get the help and the advice.
Practical problems.
Yes, advice that they would need. Exactly.
And spiritual.
Yes. Although we had a nun who did a lot of the spiritual work, and I don't want to say too much about that, but I didn't think that was the best approach. Her approach.
Sure. Well, then, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did, but I can wait. Go ahead.
So,
Yeah.
those are two things you said are most important you learned in the nurturing.
Sure.
What about with the students? What was most important?
But the students wanted someone that they could trust. They're not going to trust their English teacher. They don't feel like they can. They're not going to trust their parents about a sexual matter or about a matter of possible
Sure.
pregnancy, these sort of things. But the school counselor who doesn't have any axe to grind, I can build up trust with them.
How would you do that?
Every time I would see them, there would usually be a period of time where we would just shoot the bull, so to speak, just casual stuff. And then I would sort of horn in, relying on my opportunity to have intuition. Say, Claire, maybe we should talk about this setting. Maybe we should have her textbook out with John's name scrawled all over it, drawings of her and John.
Sure.
And there would be clues along the way that she's in love, thinks that she is, and wants someone trustworthy. So I'd build trust 2 or 3 times, visit, and then throw the questions out and see how they would react to it. And most of the women and the young boys would trust me because I was a young hippie teacher. And I had smoked weed, and I knew they smoked weed, and so they felt comfortable. This is not some old fogey who doesn't know what I'm talking about. He's like my dad. It doesn't have a sense of youthfulness or youth culture or what's important. I might relate to a song that they like, or talk about the Haight-Ashbury.
Sure. So more like an older sibling than a
Yes.
parent.
Yes. And again, I had to have the boundaries because it was so easy. Many of my colleagues got involved romantically with their students. And that was so amazing to me that it was happening so broadly in my school and several schools, and I knew it was going on. And so I was really fearful of that kind of thing happening.
Sure.
Or someone making a charge. Or he's a narc. That was the other thing. They were worried that you were a narc. You're befriending me, so you can get in trouble or arrested for selling drugs, buying drugs in towns. So you had to walk a fine line. I had to walk a fine line with the women in the pen. I had to walk a fine line with cancer patients because I don't want to give the wrong advice. If the doctor says you're terminal and I'm saying, no, you can get through this. I'm not going to give you a false hope and go against the medical profession. That's encouraging me to take this counseling job. So I had to be careful in every way from all of my experiences. I also worked with developmentally disabled children. I didn't go into that, but I feel like I should have. I had a chance to work with some children.
Was Learning for Living was the name of the place?
Learning for Living.
Yeah, it's in.
No, but I mean not in depth.
Sure.
See, I had people who came there, primarily children and Down syndrome. The Down syndrome child is the most loving person you'll ever meet in your life. They just have so much incredible love for you. And with Herman, Herman was actually 30, but operating at about 12, age 12, by testing. And so my job was to work with him and show him friendship and show him guidance. So every time we met, we would go through his wallet, and he would show me what he had. And then at each time it was fresh, same thing. And this belonged to a certain club. He was a checkers player. He had memberships, and he had a couple of bucks that his parents gave him for sodas.
And why would you do this each time?
Oh, that's what he wanted.
Okay.
My job was to help these kids in any way that looked appropriate. If I could counsel them, I could, but I would. But otherwise, we would just do what was on the agenda for the child, or that man, woman, child. So many of them were living long beyond what medical science thought that they could. They were loved by their families to such a degree that they had this special time in therapy. And sometimes we would just play with blocks, or we had a kind of a Lego setup. That was fun.
So before you got into the counseling, or what was your thinking when you were younger, before you began those programs?
Yeah.
What made you want, or felt driven to do it?
Yeah. Before those ideas came to me, I thought, well, I'll obviously be an English teacher with a minor in drama. because I loved acting. I had been in some professional acting troupes. So I thought, well, I can always do that. And then as I began to work in 2 schools, predominantly 2, because when you start, you sub, you work at a lot of different places. But I got hired in 2 places. So those are the ones I use as reference. Well, one was a vocational high school where the kids didn't go to college, they went to trade schools. So they would have academics in the morning, in the afternoon they go to jet mechanics, or they go fix cars, or they go fix shoes, or do cafeteria work and learn how to be a chef.
Sure.
It was great program. I think City College takes over some of that now. And a kid would get a job, you know. It wasn't about trying to go to college, because maybe they weren't college bound, maybe they weren't material for college, or had no interest, but they had an interest in fixing cars. So damn it, they got a license or a permit to go into the industry, jobs, and they fulfilled the GED. Great thing. So wait.
What I was going to ask you though, from before, is well, I had a couple questions that surfaced, but I think the one that I'm going to stick with is.
Sure, but I did want to answer this. I don't think I answered it fully.
Oh, okay.
If I may.
Sure, of course.
So in other words, I thought that these 2 schools would provide me with English teaching and remedial writing and speech and drama. And then as I began to work in these 2 schools, I began to see that in these 2 schools, that was a big stretch. Because at that time, late 60s, early 70s, there was a tremendous drug problem. And so breakfast might be second all in wine, and lying on the couch at the principal's office.